The void of space rippled like disturbed water as reality itself seemed to tear apart. Then they came. Massive shapes burst through the dimensional barrier, their hulls gleaming like black metal under the distant stars. The Xerion war fleet materialized. In formation, each ship larger than Earth's biggest cities. Admiral Vorthak's flagship, the Death's Echo, dwarfed everything around it. Its hull stretched for miles, bristling with weapons that could split moons in half. The Admiral himself stood 12 feet tall, his obsidian exoskeleton reflecting the bridge lights. 4 crimson eyes scanned the primitive blue world below, while his 6 arms worked the command controls with practiced precision. "Pathetic," he muttered, watching Earth spin lazily in the darkness. Another backwater planet that thinks it rules the galaxy. Behind him, 1,200 warships arranged themselves in perfect attack formation. Dreadnoughts with void missiles that could erase continents. Destroyers carrying plasma cannons hot enough to melt steel instantly. Cruisers loaded with quantum. Bombs that would make Earth's nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. Commander Zephys, his second-in-command, approached with confident steps. "Admiral, all ships report ready for planetary bombardment. Shall we begin the cleansing?" Vorthak raised one of his massive clawed hands. "Not yet. First, we give them the chance to surrender. It makes the conquest more satisfying when they realize how hopeless their situation truly is." The bridge crew of various alien species nodded in agreement. They had done this routine on countless worlds. The ultimatum, the panic, the desperate attempts at negotiation, and finally, the complete destruction of all resistance. It never got old. "Begin the standard broadcast," Vorthak commanded, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 conquered civilizations. The transmission array hummed to life, sending his words across space at light speed. Every radio, television, and communication device on Earth would receive his message simultaneously. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, life continued normally. In Seoul, Commander Hyunwoo Park sat in his office at the Korean Defense Ministry, reviewing training reports over his morning coffee. The 40-year-old officer had spent his entire career preparing for threats that never came. Until today. The emergency klaxons started wailing, just as Vorthak's message burst through every speaker in the building. The alien's voice boomed with mechanical precision. "Primitive humans of Earth, I am Admiral Vorthak of the Xerion Empire. Your insignificant world has been selected for integration into our galactic dominion. Your weapons are toys, your defenses are paper. Your entire species exists only because we have not yet decided to exterminate you. Surrender immediately and submit to Xerion rule, or face complete annihilation. You have 1 solar rotation to comply with this ultimatum." The transmission ended with the sound of static. Commander Park set down his coffee cup very slowly. His aide, Captain Min-seo Kim, burst into the room with a tablet showing radar readings that looked like Christmas lights gone mad. "Sir, we have multiple contacts in orbit, massive signatures. The satellites are going crazy with—" She stopped mid-sentence because her commanding officer was making a very strange sound. It started as a small chuckle, then grew into full laughter that shook his entire body. "Sir?" Captain Kim stared at him with growing concern. "Are you all right?" "They—" Hyunwoo gasped between fits of laughter. "They actually said 1 solar rotation and primitive humans. Did you hear that? It's exactly like the villain's speech from Galaxy War 7. Kim looked at him like he had lost his mind. "Sir, this is a real alien invasion. Shouldn't we be, panicking?" But the laughter was contagious. As news of the ultimatum spread through the command center, other officers began snickering. Someone pulled up the movie clip on their phone, and sure enough, the evil Emperor Darkstar's speech was almost word for word identical to what they had just heard. The laughter spread beyond the military base. In Tokyo, General Tai-hyun Choi was in the middle of briefing his emergency response team when the transmission played. He made it exactly 3 sentences into his prepared panic speech before dissolving into giggles. "I'm sorry," he told his bewildered staff, "but did anyone else notice that the alien fleet is arranged in the exact same formation as the bad guys in Independence Day, right down to the big ship in the center?" His aide pulled up satellite footage on the main screen. The resemblance was unmistakable. Someone in the back of the room started humming the movie's theme music. which only made everyone laugh harder. In New York, the United Nations emergency session was supposed to be humanity's most serious moment. President Ji Ho-yoon had prepared a grave speech about unity in the face of extinction. Instead, she found herself staring at the assembled world leaders, many of whom were struggling not to smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began formally, "we face an unprecedented—" She paused as someone in the gallery made a comment about the aliens' terrible timing, arriving just as Earth was in the middle of a sci-fi movie marathon week on television. That did it. The president of South Korea, leader of one of the world's most technologically advanced nations, started giggling like a schoolgirl. Within seconds, the entire UN assembly was in various stages of laughter. Social media exploded faster than the alien weapons could have. China alien cliché started trending worldwide within minutes. Memes comparing Admiral Vorthak's ultimatum to every invasion movie ever made flooded the internet. Someone had already created a bingo card of alien invasion tropes, and they were checking off boxes faster than they could make new ones. Evil overlord voice? Check. Ultimatum with exact time limit? Check. Claims of superior technology? Check. Calling humans primitive? Double check. Up in space, Admiral Vorthak watched the global response feeds with growing confusion. His tactical officers were running scans trying to understand what was happening on the planet's surface. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "the humans appear to be laughing." Laughing? Vorthak's four eyes narrowed dangerously. "Run a psychological analysis. Perhaps their minds have broken from fear." But the scans showed otherwise. The humans weren't terrified or insane. They were genuinely, authentically amused. News anchors struggled to keep straight faces while reporting the end of the world. Military commanders were sharing jokes while mobilizing their forces. Even children were giggling as their parents explained that aliens had finally arrived. For the first time in his 1,000-year career of conquest, Admiral Vorthak encountered something completely outside his experience. Every species in the galaxy had reacted to his ultimatum with fear, rage, desperate bargaining, or resigned acceptance. None had ever laughed. Commander Zephys studied the readouts from his scanner with growing bewilderment. His reptilian features twisted into what passed for a frown among his species. The massive alien stood beside Admiral Vorthak, his scaled hands dancing across holographic displays that showed Earth's surface in real time. "Perhaps their minds have snapped from terror," Zephys suggested, his voice carrying the mechanical buzz of his translator implant. "It's happened before on primitive worlds, complete psychological breakdown in the face of superior force." But even as he spoke, the data told a different story. The bioscanners designed to detect fear, panic, and mental collapse were showing readings that made no sense. Instead of the expected spikes in stress hormones and neural chaos, they were detecting something the Xerion computers had never encountered before. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Crix from the sensor station, "the Psychological Warfare Division is requesting clarification. Their equipment is registering what appears to be joy." Vorthak's four eyes blazed with crimson light. "Joy? Run the scans again. The equipment must be malfunctioning." But the second scan confirmed the first. Across Earth's surface, humans were experiencing genuine amusement. Not the desperate laughter of broken minds, but the real thing. They were actually enjoying this. Down on Earth, the scene was unlike anything in galactic history. In London, BBC News anchor James Wright was attempting to deliver a serious report about humanity's first contact with alien life. He made it exactly 30 seconds before his professional composure cracked. "I'm sorry, viewers," he said, dabbing at his eyes with a tissue, "but I can't stop thinking about how the alien admiral looks exactly like the villain from Cosmic Terror 3. Even the voice is the same." In Moscow, General Svetlana Petrov was reviewing satellite images of the alien fleet when she noticed something that made her burst out laughing. "Look at this," she told her staff, pointing at the screen. "They've arranged their ships in a perfect circle around Earth. It's the classic blockade formation from every space movie ever made." Her aide, Colonel Dmitry Volkov, pulled up a comparison image from the 1990s film Stargate Invasion. The resemblance was so exact, It looked like the aliens had used the movie as a blueprint. But the most remarkable scene was happening in Seoul, where Dr. Ye-Jin Lee was attempting to establish communication with the alien fleet. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. She had written papers on first contact protocols, studied every possible scenario, and trained for decades to be humanity's voice to the stars. She was also a huge science fiction fan. "Open channel to the alien fleet," she instructed her communications team, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. The subspace radio crackled to life, carrying her voice across the void to Admiral Vorthak's flagship. "Admiral Vorthak," she began, struggling to maintain a professional tone, "we appreciate your theatrical presentation, but we need a moment to compose ourselves." The response came immediately, Vorthak's voice booming with imperial authority. "Theatrical. This is not theater, human. This is conquest." Dr. Lee couldn't help herself. "Another," giggle escaped. "Oh, we know, it's just that you're doing it exactly like we imagined you would." On the bridge of the Death's Echo, the alien command staff exchanged glances that ranged from confused to concerned. Commander Zephys leaned closer to his admiral. "Sir, I don't understand. In 3,000 years of galactic expansion, no species has ever reacted like this." The Rigelians wept. The Centaurians begged for mercy. The Andromedans tried to bargain with their entire planetary wealth. But laughter? This is unprecedented. Vorthak's mandibles clicked with growing irritation. The sound echoed through the bridge like castanets. "Perhaps these humans are more primitive than we thought. Maybe they don't understand the concept of death." But before he could respond, another voice joined the transmission. General Do-Hyun Ko, Earth's defense minister, was speaking from his secure bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Despite the gravity of the situation, he was still grinning broadly. "Admiral, with all due respect, did you rehearse that speech? Because it sounds word for word like the bad guy from Stellar Conquest, the movie. I mean, seriously, even the dramatic pauses are in the same places." The silence that followed was deafening. On the alien bridge, various species of conquered beings who served as crew members began murmuring among themselves. The Xerian Empire's conquest speeches were supposedly original, crafted by the finest military minds in the galaxy. Vorthak's 4 eyes narrowed to burning slits. "You dare mock the Xerian Empire?" "Not mocking," General Ko assured him quickly, though his voice still carried traces of amusement. "We're just prepared." The word hung in space like a challenge. Prepared? How could a species that had never left their own solar system be prepared for galactic conquest? In Tokyo, General Tai-Hyun Choi was watching the exchange on his command center's main screen while his staff pulled up movie databases. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we found 17 different films that use almost identical dialogue to what we just heard. The aliens are either copying our movies or our movies got it right," Choi finished, "which means we've been preparing for this exact scenario for decades without even knowing it." Back on the alien flagship, Vorthak was having his first real conversation with a species that wasn't cowering in terror. It was deeply unsettling. "Prepared for what, human?" Dr. Lee took over the communication again. "Admiral, for the past century, human entertainment has been obsessed with alien invasion scenarios. We've imagined every possible way this could go. Your ultimatum, your ship formations, even your choice of words. We've seen it all before." "Impossible," Vorthak growled. "The Xerian Empire's tactics have been perfected over millennia of conquest." "Oh, I'm sure they have," Dr. Lee replied. "But you see, Admiral, great minds think alike. Your military strategists and our science fiction writers apparently came to the same conclusions about how to conduct an invasion." Commander Zephys was frantically running searches through the Xerion military database. What he found made his blood run cold. The Empire's original conquest protocols bore striking similarities to the entertainment media of dozens of worlds they had conquered, but those species had been too terrified to notice the patterns. "Admiral," Zephys whispered urgently, "the humans may have a point. Our tactics are predictable." But Vorthak was too proud to admit such a thing. "Predictable or not, these humans will learn to fear the Xerian Empire, Begin Phase 2 of the invasion protocol. Down on Earth, General. Ko was already issuing orders to his forces. All units prepare to implement Defense Strategy Omega-7, also known as the Independence Day Protocol. They're going to try to jam our communications next. His prediction proved accurate. Within minutes, Earth's satellites began experiencing interference as the alien fleet deployed electronic warfare systems. It was exactly the same tactic used by the fictional invaders in the 1996 movie. Jamming detected, reported a technician at NORAD. Switching to hardline communications, just like in the movie. The seamless transition from satellite to fiber optic networks happened so smoothly that the aliens were caught completely off guard. Their jamming systems were designed to cripple primitive communication networks, not to deal with a species that had already planned for this exact scenario. On the alien bridge, alarms began blaring. "Admiral," reported the communications officer, "the humans have completely bypassed our jamming. They're still coordinating globally." For the first time, in his long career, Admiral Vorthak began to feel something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. These humans were not reacting like any species he had ever encountered. They weren't just unafraid, they were actively enjoying the experience. "Sir," Commander Zephys said quietly, "perhaps we should consider alternative approaches." But Vorthak's pride would not allow retreat. "No, we continue with the standard invasion protocol. These humans will learn to fear us one way or another." What he didn't realize was that humanity had already learned to fear alien invasion. They had been afraid of it for decades. They had just spent so much time thinking about it, planning for it, and imagining it that when the real thing finally arrived, it felt less like a nightmare and more like a dream come true. The global emergency broadcast interrupted every television channel, radio station, and internet stream on Earth. In living rooms, offices, and military bunkers around the world, humans stopped what they were doing to watch Admiral So Young Nam step up to the podium at the United Nations headquarters. The 50-year-old fleet commander looked different from the laughing officials who had been responding to the alien ultimatum. Her expression was serious, focused, but there was something else in her eyes, a gleam that suggested she knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. "Fellow humans," she began, her voice carrying across the planet, "I know many of you are wondering why we're not panicking right now, why we're laughing when we should be terrified. The answer is simple. For over a century, we've been preparing for this exact moment." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "Not through weapons or technology alone, but through something uniquely human: our imagination." Behind her, a massive holographic display flickered to life. The screen showed thousands of images: movie posters, book covers, video game screenshots, comic books, and television shows, all of them featuring aliens, space battles, and invasion scenarios. "Every alien invasion story ever told has been our training simulation," Admiral Nam explained, gesturing to the display. "Every doomsday scenario, every first contact gone wrong, every galactic empire's conquest. We've already lived through it in our fiction." The display began cycling through specific examples. The towering alien ships from Independence Day appeared next to satellite photos of Vorthak's fleet. The resemblance was uncanny. Then came clips from War of the Worlds, showing the same ultimatum structure that the Xerian admiral had used. In his flagship orbiting Earth, Admiral Vorthak watched the broadcast with growing confusion. His tactical officers were running comparisons between their standard invasion protocols and the human entertainment media. The results were disturbing. Captain Dongmin Seo, Earth's Strategic Operations Chief, stepped up to the podium next. The 38-year-old officer had spent his career studying military history and science fiction in equal measure. Now, that unusual combination was about to pay off. "Admiral Vorthak's tactics are practically a checklist from Independence Day," he announced, pulling up a side-by-side comparison on the holographic display. His ultimatum, straight out of War of the Worlds. Even his ship formation matches Battlestar Galactica, the Xerion Wars. The comparison was devastating. Every move the alien fleet had made so far was a perfect match for fictional invasion scenarios that humans had been watching for decades. But the real revelation came when Dr. Hay-Rin Park, Earth's chief weapons analyst, took the microphone. The brilliant scientist had been studying the alien ships through every telescope and sensor array on the planet. "They're using trilithium-enhanced plasma cannons," she observed, pointing to detailed scans of the alien weapons systems. "The energy signatures are identical to the weapons described in Galaxy Defenders 3. Output suggests they're probably vulnerable to electromagnetic pulse weapons, just like in the movie." On the alien bridge, Commander Zephys turned to his admiral with alarm. "Sir, that's classified information. How could they possibly know our weapon specifications?" Vorthak's 4 eyes were fixed on the human broadcast. "They're guessing," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Dr. Park wasn't finished. She pulled up more technical data, comparing alien ship designs to fictional counterparts. Their hull composition appears to be a tritanium-duranium alloy, which, according to Star Trek technical manuals, should be vulnerable to phaser frequencies. Their shield generators are positioned exactly where they were in Starship Troopers, the Space War. The human scientist continued her analysis with frightening accuracy. "Based on their ship formations and energy readings, I estimate their faster-than-light drives use a hyperspace tunnel system similar to what we saw in Babylon 5. This means they'll need to maintain specific exit vectors when retreating." In military installations around Earth, commanders were frantically taking notes. Everything the aliens were doing had been predicted, analyzed, and countered in human fiction. The invasion that should have been humanity's darkest hour was turning into the ultimate pop culture reference guide. General Tae-Hyun Choi was watching from his command center in Tokyo, surrounded by stacks of science fiction movies and military strategy guides. "Dr. Park is right," he told his staff. "Look at this." He held up a technical manual from a 1980s science fiction role-playing game. Even their communication protocols match what we imagined 40 years ago. The revelation was spreading through Earth's defense forces like wildfire. In the Pentagon, strategists were pulling tactics from military science fiction novels. In Sci-Fi NORAD, technicians were implementing defense strategies from video games. In naval bases around the world, commanders were studying space combat scenarios from movies and television shows. But the most shocking moment came when a young lieutenant at the Seoul Defense Command made a discovery that changed everything. Lieutenant Park Young-ho, a 25-year-old communications officer, had been running the alien language through translation software when he noticed something impossible. "Sir," he reported to Commander Hyun-woo Park, "I think I know why. Everything seems so familiar. The alien language structure, it's not completely alien. Parts of it match constructed languages from science fiction." Commander Park looked at the data with growing amazement. "Are you saying—" "Yes, sir. About 30% of their vocabulary appears to be based on Klingon from Star Trek, mixed with the alien language from Independence Day, and some elements from Stargate." The implications were staggering. Either the aliens had been studying human entertainment media, or human science fiction writers had somehow predicted actual alien culture with impossible accuracy. Admiral Nam continued her broadcast, now addressing the alien fleet directly. "Admiral Vorthak, we're not mocking your empire. We're simply pointing out that this isn't our first rodeo, so to speak. We've been thinking about alien invasion for longer than your species has probably existed." She gestured to the display showing a timeline of human science fiction. H.G. Wells wrote War of the Worlds in 1898. "We've been refining invasion scenarios for over 125 years. Every possible tactic, every weapon system, every psychological warfare technique. We've already imagined it, studied it, and figured out how to counter it." The broadcast showed clips from dozens of movies and TV shows, each one predicting some aspect of the current invasion with eerie accuracy. The alien ships, the ultimatum, the formation, even the timing, it had all been done before in human fiction. On the alien flagship, the mood was shifting from confidence to concern. Admiral Vorthak had conquered hundreds of worlds, but he had never faced an enemy that seemed to know his playbook better than he did. "Admiral, Commander Zephys said quietly. "Perhaps we should consider that these humans might be more formidable than we initially assessed." But Vorthak's pride was wounded. The idea that a primitive species could predict his empire's military tactics was impossible to accept. "They're bluffing," he declared. "No species could anticipate Xerion's strategy without experiencing it firsthand." "Doctor." Park's voice came through the communication channel one more time. "Admiral, with respect, we didn't anticipate your strategy. We invented it. Your entire invasion doctrine appears to be based on human science fiction from the 20th and 21st centuries. Either you've been studying our movies, or we've been accidentally studying you for over a century." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in his 1,000-year career, Admiral Vorthak realized he might be facing an enemy that was not just unafraid, but actually better prepared than he was. The humans weren't just ready for alien invasion. They had been rehearsing for it their entire civilization. Admiral Vorthak's patience finally snapped like a brittle twig. His 4 crimson eyes blazed with fury as he watched the humans continue their mocking analysis of his invasion fleet. 1,000 years of successful conquests had never prepared him for this level of disrespect. "Enough!" he roared, his voice echoing through the bridge of the Death's Echo. The sound was so loud that several smaller alien crew members actually flinched. "Begin the assault! Show these primitive beings the true power of the Xerion Empire." His clawed hands slammed down on the command console with enough force to crack the metal surface. "Activate the neural disruptors. Scramble their primitive minds." The order rippled through the alien fleet like lightning. Across 1,200 warships, exotic weapons systems hummed to life. The neural disruptors were the Xerion Empire's most feared psychological weapon, energy waves that could drive entire civilizations insane with terror and despair. Down on Earth, Colonel Jin Yu was monitoring the situation from her post at the Global Defense Grid headquarters, buried deep beneath the Swiss Alps. The 42-year-old officer had been tracking the alien fleet's energy signatures for hours, waiting for exactly this moment. Her console began flashing with warnings as the alien ships powered up their neural weapons. "Neural disruptors detected," she announced to her team with casual indifference. "Energy frequency matches theoretical models from the Psychic Wars series." She barely glanced up from her console as she continued, "Really? They're starting? With mental attacks? Commander Lee, initiate Protocol Omega-7. Commander Xiong-Ho Lee, sitting at the adjacent control station, actually grinned as his fingers danced across the holographic interface. "The Mind Shield defense from Psychic Wars? Already online, ma'am. The technology they activated would have seemed impossible just decades earlier." Earth scientists had spent years studying fictional descriptions of psychic defenses, gradually turning science fiction into science fact. Quantum field generators created interference patterns that disrupted neural manipulation attempts. The systems had been designed based on detailed technical descriptions from novels and movies. The Xerion neural attack washed over Earth like an invisible tsunami of mental poison. The waves of psychic energy were designed to turn rational beings into gibbering madness, to fill their minds with such overwhelming fear that they would beg for death rather than resistance. Instead, the attack crashed harmlessly against Earth's psionic barriers, like ocean waves against a seawall. Not a single human on the planet felt even the slightest mental disturbance. On the alien flagship, the neural warfare specialist stared at his readings in complete shock. "Admiral, the attack had no effect. Their minds are completely shielded." "Impossible." Vorthak snarled, his mandibles clicking furiously. "No primitive species has ever developed defense against Xerion mental weapons, but the evidence was undeniable. Earth's population was going about their daily business, completely unaffected by weapons that had broken the spirits of entire galactic civilizations." Vorthak's rage reached new heights. "Deploy the quantum bombs, reduce their cities to atomic dust." The command went out immediately. Squadrons of sleek alien bombers detached from the main fleet, their hulls gleaming with deadly purpose. Each ship carried weapons that could erase entire continents from existence. In the cockpit of her F-35 Lightning Interceptor, Captain Bo Young-shin was leading Earth's Space Defense Squadron when the alien bombers appeared on her radar. The 30-year-old pilot had logged more hours in combat simulators than anyone in the Korean Air Force. But this was her first real space battle. She couldn't stop grinning. "Quantum weapons?" She laughed into her radio, her voice carrying to every fighter pilot in the squadron. "They're using quantum bombs, just like in tomorrow's war. All fighters, execute the Mobius counterstrike." The response was immediate and devastating. Earth's fighter squadrons moved in perfect coordination, executing attack patterns that had been refined through decades of video games and flight simulators. The Mobius counterstrike was a fictional maneuver from a 1990s space combat game, but human pilots had practiced it so many times that it had become second nature. The alien bombers found themselves surrounded by swarms of human fighters moving in impossible spirals and loops. Every time they tried to target one fighter, 3 more appeared from unexpected angles. The attack pattern was so complex and unpredictable that the alien targeting computers couldn't keep up. "How are they doing this?" Commander Zephys demanded, watching the battle unfold on his tactical display. "Those maneuvers are impossible for primitive atmospheric craft." But Earth's fighters weren't limited by atmospheric physics. They had been secretly upgraded with technology reverse-engineered from science fiction. Anti-gravity generators, inertial dampeners, and energy shields, all developed from detailed descriptions in human entertainment media. Captain Shin's fighter screamed through space in a tight barrel roll that would have crushed a normal human pilot. But her cockpit was equipped with inertial dampening fields that kept her perfectly comfortable, even during the most violent maneuvers. "Fox 2, she called out, launching a missile that tracked its target with impossible precision. The quantum bomber she was targeting exploded in a brilliant flash of light. All around her, other human pilots were achieving similar results. The alien bombers, despite their superior technology, were being systematically destroyed by fighters that moved, like they were dancing rather than fighting. On the ground, General Woo Jin-han was coordinating Earth's surface defenses from his command bunker in Seoul. The 55-year-old veteran had spent his entire career preparing for conventional warfare, but alien invasion required a different approach entirely. "Landing craft approaching New York, Seoul, and London," reported his intelligence officer. "Standard tripod configuration, just like the movies predicted." General Han studied the incoming alien dropships through his periscope and shook his head in amazement. They really did copy everything from H.G. Wells, didn't they? The tripod walkers, the heat rays, even the landing pattern. It's like they used War of the Worlds as an instruction manual. But Earth was ready. Human military strategists had studied every possible alien invasion scenario for over a century. They knew exactly how to deal with tripod war machines. All. "Units implement Operation Thunderstorm," General Han commanded. "Target their leg joints with electromagnetic pulse weapons, just like in the 2005 movie remake." The results were spectacular. As the alien tripods emerged from their landing craft, they were met by coordinated strikes from weapons specifically designed to exploit their weaknesses. Electromagnetic pulse cannons fired concentrated bursts at the joints, where the legs connected to the main body. One by one, the mighty war machines toppled over like felled trees. In New York's Central Park, Sergeant Minho Park led his squad in a perfect flanking maneuver around a disabled tripod. "Remember," he called to his troops, "aim for the heat. Ray projector, it's their only real weapon." His team moved with the precision of actors following a well-rehearsed script. Every movement, every tactical decision had been practiced countless times through military training exercises based on science fiction scenarios. The most unnerving aspect for Admiral Vorthak was that the humans were clearly enjoying themselves. Fighter pilots whooped with joy as they outmaneuvered Xerian interceptors. Ground troops shared jokes while taking down alien war machines. Even the civilians were treating the invasion like an exciting movie come to life. "This is better than any video game." Captain Shin laughed as she destroyed another alien bomber. "The graphics are amazing." On the alien flagship, Vorthak watched his invasion force being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to be having fun. His neural disruptors had failed. His quantum bombs were being intercepted. His ground forces were being outmaneuvered by beings who treated warfare like entertainment. For the first time in his 1,000-year career, Admiral Vorthak began to understand that he might be facing an enemy unlike any he had ever encountered. These humans hadn't just prepared for alien invasion, they had been looking forward to it. The battle had turned into a complete disaster for the Xerion Empire. Admiral Vorthak stood on his flagship's bridge, watching helplessly as his 1,000-year reign of terror crumbled like a house of cards. Warning lights flashed red across every surface, while damage reports poured in from all directions. "Admiral, we've lost 60% of our bomber fleet," reported Commander Zephys, his voice trembling with disbelief. "The human fighters are moving in patterns our computers can't predict. Ground forces are requesting immediate evacuation," added another officer. "The tripod units are being destroyed faster than they can deploy." Vorthak's 4 eyes burned with a mixture of rage and something he had never experienced before. Genuine fear. Not fear of death, but fear of the impossible. How could a species that had never left their own solar system be defeating the galaxy's most advanced military force? The answer came crashing through his hull in the form of human boarding parties. Captain Eugene Park led the assault on the flagship's docking bay, her team moving through the alien corridors with practiced efficiency. The 35-year-old Special Forces officer had trained for this exact scenario countless times in virtual reality simulations based on science fiction movies. "Wow, this is actually pretty cool," she commented to her squad as they advanced through the ship's gleaming, metallic hallways. "Very Starship Troopers meets Alien Nation. The architecture is exactly what I expected." Her sergeant, Jun Seo Kim, was consulting a tablet that showed the ship's layout. "The bridge should be 3 levels up," he added helpfully. "Standard Empire-class dreadnought design according to the Galactic Conquest game series. Elevator. Banks should be right around this corner." Sure enough, they found the elevators exactly where the video game had predicted they would be. The human boarding party moved through the alien ship like tourists following a guidebook. "Motion sensors ahead," warned Corporal Hai Jin Lee, checking her scanner. "Looks like automated defense systems." "Laser turrets?" asked Captain Park. "Plasma-based, but same principle. Standard corridor defense grid." Captain Park grinned. "Remember the trick from Space Marine 7? Use the reflective surfaces to bounce the beams back at the emitters." The tactic worked perfectly. The alien defense systems, designed to stop panicked enemies, were completely unprepared for attackers who knew exactly how to exploit their weaknesses. Meanwhile, other human teams were boarding ships throughout the alien fleet. The Xerion Empire's supposedly impregnable vessels were being invaded by creatures who seemed to know their way around better than their own crews. On the command deck of a Xerion destroyer, Lieutenant Commander Tae-ho Yoon was leading his team toward the ship's reactor core. "The power coupling should be behind that blast door," he told his demolitions expert. "Cut through it, but be careful not to hit the containment field generators." "How do you know so much about alien ship design?" asked his confused sergeant. 20 years of science fiction games," Yoon replied matter-of-factly. "Plus, these aliens really aren't very creative. Everything they build follows the same basic principles we've been using in our entertainment for decades." Back on the flagship, Admiral Vorthak had barricaded himself on the bridge with his remaining loyal officers. But he knew it was hopeless. The humans were systematically taking control of his entire fleet, and they were doing it with the casual efficiency of people following a familiar routine. The bridge doors exploded inward in a shower of sparks and metal fragments. Captain Park's team stormed in, weapons ready, moving in perfect formation. They had practiced this exact scenario in training simulations based on dozens of space combat movies. When they finally cornered Vorthak at his command throne, the great admiral was a broken being. His supposedly invincible empire had been defeated by creatures who treated interstellar warfare like an entertaining hobby. "How?" he whispered, his voice barely audible above the sound of alarms and crackling fires. "How did you know? How did you prepare for techniques that have never been used against your species?" Commander Hyunwoo Park, who had been leading the overall boarding operation, stepped forward with respectful dignity. The career military officer had spent his entire life studying warfare, but he had never expected his knowledge of science fiction to be more valuable than his conventional military training. "Admiral, he said gently. "Your people made one critical error. You assumed that because we'd never fought a real interstellar war, we'd never thought about how to fight one. But humans, we never stopped thinking about the impossible." He gestured to the human troops surrounding the alien command crew. "Every single person in this room has watched hundreds of hours of space battles. We've played thousands of hours of combat simulations. We've read countless books about alien invasion scenarios. You didn't attack an unprepared species. You attacked a civilization that has been rehearsing for this moment for over a century." Dr. Yejin Lee, who had been monitoring the battle from Earth, appeared on the bridge's main view screen via holographic transmission. Her face showed no triumph or hatred, only genuine curiosity and hope. "Admiral Vorthak," she said, extending her hand toward the camera in a gesture of peace, "on behalf of Earth, we'd like to offer you and your people something your empire has never experienced: friendship. We've imagined that scenario too, and it usually works out better for everyone." The alien admiral looked at the offered hand on the screen, then at the humans surrounding him on his own bridge. They had defeated his fleet, boarded his ships, and captured him personally. Yet they showed no hatred, no desire for revenge, no urge to humiliate their conquered enemy. Instead, they looked at him with the same fascination they might show a character from one of their beloved science fiction stories. "You're not going to execute me?" Vorthak asked in confusion. "Execute you?" Captain Park looked genuinely shocked. "Admiral, you're the galaxy's most experienced military commander. We'd be honored to learn from you. Plus, in about half the movies where aliens and humans fight, they end up becoming allies against an even bigger threat." For the first time in his 1,000-year life, Admiral Vorthak experienced something completely new. The sound started as a small chuckle, then grew into full-bodied laughter that shook his entire massive frame. "You prepare for everything, don't you?" he asked between fits of laughter. "Pretty much," Commander Park admitted with a grin. "We've got contingency plans for zombie apocalypses, robot uprisings, time travel paradoxes, and interdimensional invasions. Alien conquest was actually one of our more thoroughly researched scenarios." The laughter was contagious. Soon humans and aliens throughout the fleet were sharing the same absurd realization. The galaxy's most feared military force had been outmatched by a species that treated warfare like entertainment. 3 days later, the Xerian Empire's first diplomatic treaty was signed in the United Nations building in New York. Admiral Vorthak, still chuckling occasionally, found himself sitting across from human negotiators who kept making references to science fiction, movies he had never heard of. "So in this scenario from Star Trek," Dr. Lee was explaining, "former enemies become allies and explore the galaxy together. We think that model might work well for our species." Admiral Vorthak nodded thoughtfully. "Your species is unlike anything we've encountered in our expansion across the galaxy. Perhaps it's time the Xerian Empire learned new approaches to diplomacy. We'd be happy to teach you," offered General Ko. "We've got thousands of stories about peaceful first contact scenarios. Most of them work out pretty well for everyone involved. Earth became the first planet in galactic history to defeat an alien invasion through the power of science fiction. The Xerian Empire, meanwhile, discovered that sometimes the best way to conquer a species is to join them for movie night. Within a year, Xerian warriors were attending human film festivals, learning about Earth's vast library of space opera entertainment. Many of them became fans themselves, particularly enjoying the stories where aliens and humans work together as friends. Admiral Vorthak eventually retired from military service and became Earth's first alien cultural exchange ambassador. He spent his remaining years helping translate human science fiction into Xerian language, introducing his own species to the power of imagination. The galaxy was never quite the same after that. Word spread quickly about the planet where beings had weaponized their own creativity, turning fantasy into the ultimate defense system. Other aggressive species began to reconsider their expansion plans, wondering what other impossible preparations these humans might have made. But Earth was ready for those challenges too. After all, they had been imagining them for decades. The end